Welcome to Networking Knowledge. Join Dave Plunkett, founder at Collaboration Junkie and Partnerships and Referral Strategy Guru, and Paul the Banksy of LinkedIn, founder at Javelin Content and co-founder at Marketing Help Desk, as they discuss networking in real life, what it is, how to do it well, and share their incredible expertise. This is real life networking. Stop. It's hammer time, damn it.
Stop. It's hammer time, damn it.
Oh,
I love that intro.
If I ever get bored of that intro, then something is going wrong in life, to be honest with you. So there we go.
This is networking in real life. And it's true, right? Like that's why we wanted to do it, Dave, because me and you live this day in, day out. And I see so many good people like just really struggling with things that me and you probably take for granted. Like we just assume these things, and that's where there's that quite a lot of the time. That's where the real value is for people, I think.
Yeah.
So today's probably sits perfectly in your sweet spot, Dave. If I'm completely honest, it's we both, I think, like love doing this. We both enjoy doing this for other people, making referrals, making introductions. But let's be honest, this is what you've actually made a business out of. So whereas I just enjoy doing it, you've actually made a business out of not making the introductions, but showing people how to make good introductions.
Yeah, you know, it's a flip, because most of the time I'm working with people, giving them the skills and the knowledge and the processes to ask for introductions in a better way, right? But actually, if you're looking at networking and building a really strong network, rather than just card and connection collecting, one of the key ways to do that is to make introductions. There's the law of reciprocity, right? Givers gain. Like all these sayings, right? They're all true. One of the best ways to add value to your network is to make introductions. And what I would say, broader than introductions, recommendations as well, like just things that you know add value to people. Like going and doing that is a great way to add value to your network, build goodwill amongst it, and then kind of introductions and referrals back to you flow from there as well. But you're right, it's something that people sometimes struggle with how to do. But I would say, and that thing where it's easy to us, there's a saying I use a lot, which is it's not common sense, it's experience. Everyone listening now will have something that they can just do, and it feels completely natural to them, and that's because it's what they do. It's one of their little superpowers, right? And so yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of maybe sharing some more of this stuff with people, and you're brilliant at it too. So
yeah, but look, I think I find it fun, and that's the tall and short of it. Is I think too much of what we do, certainly around networking, like for a lot of people, it probably feels like hard work. It feels like unnatural, and it shouldn't. Like that's something that I encourage people to move away from. If it doesn't feel natural, you're doing something wrong. It should be natural, not forced. It should be really simple. It should be easy,
enjoyable. You hit the nail on the head when it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. It should feel that way, because then the stuff flows, right? So you hit the nail on the head. And I think the first rule of doing it is to make them. So whatever we talk about today, this isn't about telling people to stop doing what they're already doing. It's just if we can help you be better at it, or give you some new ideas, then great. But done is better than perfect. So if you're doing this isn't about this is the right way to do it. It's just this is about giving people extra knowledge rather than beating people up. So first and foremost, just make them, because yeah, any introduction, however you make it, is probably going to be better than not doing it at all. So potentially, you know what?
So let's start at the beginning. Then, Dave. What is an introduction? Because like everybody's got a different view of what an intro is. Is it you drop an email and then step back and whatever happens? Do you manage that relationship? How involved should you be?
You know what? But way to go on a nice complicated one to start with, because there is no right or wrong answer to that. Everything's varying. And maybe for the purposes of today, we'll focus on what I call referrals. And I give a definition when I do referral workshops of it's a warm, contextualized introduction from one person to two mutual contacts, right? And that's at the top of the tree. That's someone, and we can unpick that a little bit as we go. That's when you are making a genuine introduction to people, right? And those introductions can take many forms: partners, good people to know, actual potential clients, all that wonderful stuff. But equally, there is that other stuff that goes down, I call it the referral staircase. It's a little bit lower, right? Someone recommending an event to you, someone, you know what, I'm going to give a shout out to a lady called Judy Geddy, who did this stuff. She's a big fan of mine anyway, but she sent me an event, right? And I realized that someone was doing back to me what I preach people to do, which is a lovely moment. And she sent me, oh, Dave, I saw this. I thought you might be interested. It's a evening event for marketing agencies in London. It's only the second event. And I was like, yeah, that's right up my street. So not only did I book onto the event, but in the event it said about, and it's called Digital Thursday. It's happening on a Thursday in March, the third Thursday, I think. But I reached out to the guy and went, oh, I hear you saying about people saying about lightning talks. Would love to do a future one. And this is what I do. And he came back and said, well, actually, we'll get you in March. So that person taking the time to go saw this, thought of you, has not only resulted in an event, but it's resulted in me in a speaking gig in front of my target audience. And so this stuff, it doesn't have to be a full-on introduction, right? This stuff just works. If you see something and you think of someone, thought this might be interesting, a book, an event, a post on LinkedIn, whatever it may be, it works. But I think we should focus on proper introductions, which is warm and contextualized.
I agree. So that, I mean, the key takeaways at the beginning is like referrals and introductions do work. I've seen people make countless introductions and get nowhere with them, and then start to doubt themselves as to whether they're doing anything right or whether it's even worth doing. Am I doing this whole networking thing wrong? I'm here to tell you it does work. I've done it. Dave's done it. I know countless people who do it right. There is a bit of a secret technique to it. I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking. I wouldn't say it's rocket science, but there is ways and means you can make it much more effective. But whilst we're talking, there's a reason we do this live. So we could just do this as a webinar, pre-record it, and pop it on YouTube, and then people watch it. We do this live because we want you to take part in the episode as well. Not a lot of people are brave enough to do this, but we're here for networking, right? So let's network. So first up, connect with me and Dave. We'd love to have your connections. We'd love to hear a bit more about what you do. No pitch slaps, please. Or be prepared to be slapped back. But today's question for the audience who's watching along is, what's your biggest frustration when you're receiving an intro from your network? What's your biggest frustration with those? Are they not targeted enough? Is there not enough information? Do they not set the tone? Do they not give you enough clarity and context around what's happening? All the things that we're probably going to cover today when Dave gets going on how to make those perfect intros. What's your biggest bugbear? And would love if you can share that in the comments. That would be awesome. And we'll read some of those out and walk through them at the end. If we haven't covered it off already, then we'll cover those towards the end. So Dave, I guess your biggest thing is always around focus, right? It's around being intentional. So it feels like a good place to start for you.
It does. And you know what? And it links into something you just said then, actually. So as much as I said, look, first of all, make them. My second thing is around not making them, right? And it's about giving the option. If you're not sure, if you're really getting into the swing of this and you're making lots of introductions like you and I do, like whenever I have a one-to-one with someone, I always want to make sure there's one useful thing I can do for them afterwards. But I give people, look, I'd say to people, I've got this intro because of this and this intro because of this. And I give people the option. And I had one literally just the other week. And the guy was like, yes, but no. And I've done the same thing before. When people say to me, I'm like, oh, I would love that intro, but it'd be amazing in however many weeks' time because I've got this thing that I'm preparing or this thing that I've got going on. Someone might just be snowed under. And if you're not certain, then it's a nice thing sometimes to check with the other person. So that's one tip around kind of that intention about it. But I also think there's another piece around that, which is around the intention, which is around letting when you make the introduction, giving some context around why this intro's being made. Is this person
just stop you there? Like, we've actually, there's a few people comment, so thank you very much if you are commenting. But actually, this is something that Caroline's already shouted out. So
there we
lack
go.
of context around why they think connecting would benefit both of us. So perfect opportunity. Thought I'll throw that in there. The other ones, I'll do the same. I'll pop them up as and when we come across them, or I'll come back to them at the end. So don't think your question hasn't been answered. We'll get to you.
So Caroline, yeah, you're spot on, right? And I do this. I make lots of intros, and they're not always. And I get lots of intros, and they're not always for this person's interested in your services, right? Sometimes it's just good people, and it can be you're both in this space with this outlook on life. Like, I thought this would be an interesting connection. Sometimes it's about there's an interest in one person or the other's services, right? And so I think adding that context is the key thing that you can do in an introduction. And sometimes if you've spoken to both parties, that's a one-liner. I'm not going to go over it again here because you both know this is coming. That's fine, right? You've done the in-person context. But if you're just jumping in, then yeah, Caroline, is number one is spot on, is don't let the other person figure it out. Give them a steer, because then the person that you're making the introduction to can gauge how quickly they want to speak to that person, how much time they want to give that person as well. Like, if it is this all right? This is going to be a sales call, or is this a speculative thing? Or Paul, you do it with me sometimes. You'll say, I think this person's perfect for one of your workshops, one of your free workshops, and so I send them a link to my free workshop with a nice message. It's still more personal than you sending someone a link. You've introed them to me, and so I think context is absolutely key. Absolutely key.
I think that the thing that I see is, because I do a lot of networking, I probably sometimes see things that the two parties might not initially see themselves. And I've been on the receiving end of those conversations. Oh, Paul, you should talk to this person. And I've gone on and had a chat with them, and I'm like, I just don't see it. And then annoyingly, like 1 minute before the end of the networking session, I go, oh, now that you've said that, I wish we could have gotten there 20 minutes ago, because that is why we were connected. Now I get it. And now we can, like, let's have another chat. So then you have to have another half-hour chat when you could have just done it all in one. So for me, is if you've spotted something, especially if it might not be obvious to the two people you're connecting, don't just go, Dave, meet Paul, Paul, meet Dave, have a chat. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah,
I mean, that can work sometimes.
Yeah, but you give the context as to why, right? And I even don't think it's Dave meet Paul. Paul does amazing video content, getting your ideas out of your head and onto socials. Paul meet Dave. Dave helps brands nurture and scale referral and partner opportunities. Because that on a Facebook, well, where's the connection there? It's the extra bit, right? But from chatting to you both, I know you both love working in this space, or you've got this project on, and it's that side bit that isn't front and center on someone's LinkedIn profile or whatever it may be, where people that can be the spark from a really useful conversation, particularly when you're in a space where there are other people that are like you, right? It's like, well, why am I talking to this particular accountant, coach, VA, whoever it may be? And so the context sometimes isn't just top level, it's that next level down as well.
Something else I'd add in here around giving context is I like to give, where possible, people's LinkedIn bio link in the email. It's not always possible, and it does take a little bit extra time. And a caveat here is sometimes that can be distracting, because people get the wrong idea based on the profile. Like, I like to do a little bit of research. I'll probably open it about 3 minutes before the meeting. Go, oh yes, I remember now. I looked at this before. Blah blah blah. But be careful with doing that, because sometimes, if somebody starts a new business and it's not even on their LinkedIn profile yet, they're in stealth mode, it's just an idea, or it's nothing to do with their LinkedIn. If you send that over on those conversations, both parties can go in with the wrong assumption that it's going to be about this, because there's an obvious link. And actually it's not that, because there's a million other people that do that thing, but your link's down here. So I laugh. Be careful.
Yeah, so I laugh because I know that you could probably call that best practice. If you haven't mentioned the intro to both people, you could argue that it's not, though. I don't do it. And I tell you, and it's not because I don't believe in it, it's time, right? So, and I make lots of intros, and never enough hours in the day. So if I'm going to focus my time on anything, it's the context. People can send a Calendly link, look up a LinkedIn profile, all that stuff. Like maybe we do another one on how to respond to an intro, right? Another time, right? Because you can do all that there. So my thing would be, Paul, you're right. Like that's the really good ideal way to hook up potentially. But if people are going to spend time on anything, spend the time to do the context more than his details.
So
but you're right.
Just to come back to a couple of the comments we've got, Paula. Thanks for joining us, Paula. It can be very general to have specifics if possible. So I think that's crucial, kind of just like what we've just talked about there. And then Lizzie mentions people who don't do their homework. So I see this a lot, is people doing intros for the sake of doing intros. I'm not going to put any real effort into this. I'm going to send you an intro that makes you feel reciprocal, so hopefully you'll do business with me. That's usually what I see behind that.
Yeah, I think that feels worse then, because someone's not made that. You're trying to make you're doing this.
Wasted your time. So it's the opposite of reciprocity at that point, and you've wasted someone's time. I'm then not going to think. I'm going to think twice about doing any further business with you, because if that's how you treat people who don't pay you, how are you going to treat me if I do start paying you for services?
Yeah, you'll go for the dev space. Let's connect you to like that. It just doesn't. It doesn't work, does it?
And it might be. Like you might connect people who do the same thing. I've got no problem with being connected with other people who do video, because I'm quite niche, and actually I like to speak with other people. But as long as I'm giving that context to what we said earlier.
Yeah.
Paul, you're both in the same space. This isn't a business conversation. This is a collaboration or a networking conversation. You guys should probably chat because you're both doing similar things. You could probably share best practices. Brilliant. I'm game for that. But let me know that in advance. Don't make the intro and let me think that this might be business or I can help them in some way, when actually it's just let's put this on the back burner for a couple of weeks because I'm really stored off.
Yeah. And that's the specific bit that Paula mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. It's and the specificity can be really vague. I just think you two will just get on. I think you can do those vague ones more when you do this stuff lots. So I've got a couple of people where I've checked, and I had a really nice comment the other day with a guy who's quite protective of his time, but he went, Dave, I made the decision that I'm just always going to accept intros from you. Right? That's because I do this a lot, and there's a judgment, the judge of character there. People go, you know what, no matter what, there's going to be an interesting conversation to be had here that I'll do. But that only comes from knowing the people, right? And so I think the specificity is really interesting. But it depends on the context. So Paula, who just popped up the chat there, I know she does a lot of in-person networking. I know she's just starting hosting a group in Chippenham. If you're in a real person kind of environment, that specificity can be much less. If you're just kind of moving on a conversation, one way to break a conversation really nicely in an in-person event is to think about someone else in that room you can introduce them to. So you're not just going, should we be off now? Go, I'll tell you who I'm going to introduce you to. And there it can be much vaguer because you're all there in a pot to just get to know people. But even in that circumstance, rather than just going, here you two talk to each other, going, I thought this might be a nice little angle. And it could be anything then. You both like walking the dog, right? Like whatever it may be, because you're in a networking environment. You can but it's still adding context, it still helps start the conversation between two people that you're putting in touch. So the context is absolutely everything.
I think there's something else in there as well, and I sometimes do this. If I'm making an introduction to two people and I think that there's a good business angle for one person to the other person, obviously I'd never connect them and go, you guys should do business because you do this, you need that. Sometimes I will, but like it's never that blunt. But what I'll generally then do is on the back of that email, I'll drop that person a voice note and go, I'm connecting you both because I think you can do business with this person. Here's the background knowledge that I have. You can use that to your advantage in the call, but I also know you're a good fit for each other. You've got to be careful doing that, but I think there's value in that for both sides because, again, you're helping them prevent waste time. Are we having a friendship chat here or a business chat? And it can set the amount of times I've gone into a conversation, somebody's booked time in my diary, and I've gone, these guys might be a really good partner. And then halfway through the conversation, they've gone, so we really like your services. And I'm like, I'd approach this completely differently if I thought you were going to be a client potentially rather than a partner.
Well, maybe that just goes to show that you didn't need to. Right? but yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's a really good point, and it's something that I like to do as well, because sometimes the context for the introduction, as you say, is the context for the intro, but you know that there is for one of the parties, they are a really nice fit. Like I know I said this, but actually I know that further down the line they absolutely are right for what you're doing. That adds so much value, and the person that you've sent that extra message or voice note to will thank you for that tenfold. So
we've got an interesting, quite a long comment from Patrick here. Thanks for commenting, Patrick. When I make intros, I always tee up the intro with context built into a mini bio, or even when I primed on the site, because I think it helps people not just what to look at in each other, but what my expectation is of how they'll show up. I think it's about focusing the lens to avoid that end of call epiphany. I think that's fair, but I would also caution, like Dave says, I do a lot of introductions that build value for people. Don't always have time for that mini bio, so I think that's an ideal world situation for me. Not always possible to add that much detail.
Yeah, but it does segue really nicely into the other thing that I wanted to raise, actually. Yeah. So you've been bringing these comments up at perfect point. Like we're on our team. Because Patrick, I absolutely, I love what you're saying there. Because the other thing that you can do in part of your introduction, I love the bit where you say about how people show up. The tone of your introduction, your email, absolutely can set the tone of what you expect this conversation to be like. Like, are you laughing and joking? If you're making laughs and jokes on your intro email, the other person immediately knows this is what it's going to be about, right? Yes. If you throw in that common thread of, like, maybe someone with introduced me might put in the fact he is a Liverpool supporter, though, so don't hold that against him. People can probably see my Eric Cantona up there, all that side. Like, do you know what I mean? It's so adding that personal stuff in as well. I think really, really helps, because it just eases the flow. Like, if I'm going in knowing roughly what the conversation is going to be about, and I get a flavour of what I think the person's going to be like as well, then I've got my energy ready for that call, right? And so I think it's a really good point. And like with all this stuff, there's gold standard of, you could do your bios, but then you can still do a little bit of this stuff pretty easily by just a quick line.
I think it gives an opportunity for a nice icebreaker as well, Dave. Like when you do things like that, is like, it just helps them get over the hump of we're two total strangers being connected by somebody we both know. For me, that's obviously always the starting point of the conversation anyway, but then what do you ease into? Oh, well, I heard that you're a Liverpool fan. Commiserations. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's why I like my office is like my shoffice is like my shoffice, because it is, and I can't. There's too much stuff to be in the house, right? But over time, it's brilliant, because people jump on a call and they can see something, whether it's Star Wars or football or music or whatever, and it gets a conversation going. We've covered this on another live before, haven't we? But if you can do some of that dot joining for your contacts that you're introducing, on a personal connection level as well as a business, and then hint at what the call is going to be like you're both super high energy people, this is going to be a fun one, then you're giving the person just that extra knowledge, right? Networking knowledge, the whole thing of this live. And the more of that knowledge you can give to your network when you're connecting them up, the smoother those introductions will go.
Yeah, and Paula makes a great point here as well, is like, when sometimes it can be 2 or 3 weeks before you have the actual meeting, and I'm often sat there like racking my brains 2 or 3 minutes before, going, who introduced me? Why am I having this conversation again? But actually, if you create, so here's a pro tip: if you do an intro via email, use that email to create the meeting. So actually use that email, and then it gets copied into the text of the event itself, and you can use that to go back. It's something I need to put more into practice myself, because I do get a lot of like WhatsApp and LinkedIn message emails. So again, you can replicate that, copy and paste it in, so you know where it came from.
I don't do that, but I'm going to start. That's a great one. That's a brilliant one. I like that.
I've just done it this morning with the Networking in Alliance meeting for next Wednesday. I've done it. I've created an event for next Wednesday morning, so my wife knows that she's taking my eldest son to school that day, because it's 7:30 till 9. But I've copied the whole email into that, so she can see what it is that I'm doing. I don't need to go and explain it to her. Oh, you're doing the networking thing again on Wednesday, right? No problem.
Yeah,
dead easy.
Nice.
And yeah, just a nice one from Paul. It's just thanking you for the shout out. There is a link in LinkedIn as well with the actual link for the event. But yeah, if you're about in Chippenham at the time, why not get yourself along? Sounds like a fun event to go to. Right, we kind of want to keep these relatively short and sweet, Dave. We've hit 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to cover on the back of this? Like, do you think we've covered everything in?
I think we've covered everything. The main thing is to not be shy making them, right? And do whatever you can to make them. If you think it's perfect, then make them. But if you're not certain, then ask the other person whether they want it. But then it really does come to that context is key for everything. Like, and yes, you could do bios. And the danger if you do all of it to the extreme is that the email becomes so long that people don't want to read it, right? But give context. Give context. Patrick and Paula and everyone else who commented around it all, essentially, it all comes down to what that context is and giving people the knowledge so that when they get on that call, it's nice and easy. So yeah.
Perfect. Right. Well, that's it from us. I think the next episode that we're going to record, we haven't set a date yet. It'll be in a couple of weeks' time. We're going to look at how you can utilize video for building your network and creating opportunities for you in the network, which probably sits a little bit more in my space. We need to refine the topic a little bit more, but it's going to be around using video and networking. So if you've enjoyed today, and thank you very much to the audience who've joined us, it's been fantastic to have people kind of commenting and chipping in as we've gone along, because that's why we do it live, right? We could quite easily just record a video and put it on YouTube, which is what I normally do. We want to make this interactive. This is about helping you guys with networking and sharing best practice. And there's quite often there's things that come up in the comments that me and Dave wouldn't have thought to talk about, because again, sometimes it's hard to see the trees for the woods, right? Or the woods for the trees, whichever way around. I always get quotes wrong. Oh, terrible with quotes. Always ruin them. But it's really hard to see that because you're too close to the subject matter. So love to have people commenting along. Great to have you along. Dan, thanks very much for commenting. Paul are there. We've got Dean. Thank you very much. We've got Lizzie. We've got Patrick, Caroline. Brilliant. What a great crew. Thank you very much for joining us. That's it from me. I'm going to leave you with a video which tells you a little bit about what we do. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Cheers, everyone.
Hello, I'm Paul. This has been Networking Knowledge Unleashed. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We've shared lots of tips today, and now it's our time to shout a little bit about what we each other do. I want to introduce Dave. Dave is a fantastic personality. As you can probably tell, he has bags of energy and positivity, and he helps businesses with their partnerships and referral strategies. He's helped my business massively. I thought I knew it all. I didn't. I went through his course and he radically changed the direction of my business. And I'm already seeing new leads coming into my business from the partners that Dave told me to match up with. So I can't recommend Dave enough. He is a fantastic personality. And if you'd like to know more about how Dave can help you in your business, the details of his next webinar, which will be free, are coming up below in the comments. Make sure you reach out, register, and take part. I promise you it is time well spent.
Thanks, Paul. Now my turn to recommend you, I guess. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking to build your personal brand through video, or you want to do more video, but you're nervous about where to start, or it seems like a faff, then speak to Paul. He is an absolute expert at not only getting the right content from you, but then repurposing it so that the content you do goes such a long way. Speak to this man. He's an absolute legend.